When I was a young kid, my father was very honest about things. I remember one time a, a a vacuum cleaner fell off the back of a truck, and my dad happened to stop and pick it up, and we needed a vacuum cleaner. Ours was pretty old and dilapidated, but my dad felt it was honest to take it back from where it came from. I guess he found I don't remember the full story, but I think he might have seen the truck or whatever that it fell out of, and he returned to the store. I don't think they even gave him a gift, any kind of prize for it. So I know this is a little bit later in our life. My dad got a phone call, and it was one of those, "You're the lucky winner," and went into this whole spiel about it. He had won this great prize, and he should drive down to, I think it was near downtown.
And this was
Uh,
in the 70s, so this was probably a real thing.
well, kind of. We were so excited as kids. We were dancing around, having a great time about how we had won this great thing. And my dad went down, uh, came back, and it was two plastic ice trays.
That
That
he had
was the
won.
prize that he won online. It was really disappointing.
Online. He won it online.
Did I say online?
Yes, you did.
Oops, not online. But he won it by the phone. Let's put it that
Like I
way.
said, he passed away in 1976, so this would have been prior to
Yeah, this
that.
was
So he actually
back in
did
the
win a
early
real
70s.
prize, but it was
It was
a silly little prize.
yeah. So anyway,
Fragile.
hello, this is Don.
And this is Gina with Focused Healthy Family.
And today this is our podcast number 234, and today we're doing a little interview with Gina. Uh, just recently I was in a interview with uh, I'm trying to think of the name of the WHIP, and it was a senior podcast. And I know the guy really well, and we sat down. I thought he was going to ask the simple questions of, what do you do, all that kind of stuff. And we kind of treaded on some of that, but he went into some heavy questions. And I thought, I might kind of turn some of those today over to Gina and get her thoughts on it. And I might add some of my own thoughts in there too, because I can't put it on here because it's not video, but I may still put it up there for to listen to. I still haven't gotten a copy of it yet. But anyway, so I thought we would start with that. But first, let's go for our tip of the day here
Tip of the
from
day
Caregiver 101. 100 ways to keep caregiving from making you crazy
by Mike Collins.
by Mike Collins. Yes. This is tip number 41, and it says just simple things. Appreciate simple things such as a child's laugh, a beautiful day, a sunset, a fire on a cold night, the touch of a hand, a cool drink of water. Too often, the stress of caregiving causes us to lose track of the simple things.
And quite fitting, we have some simple jokes because a good laugh is also uh,
Healing.
very healing. All right, Don, what did one hat say to the other?
Oh my. What did one hat say to the other? I don't know.
You wait here. I'll go on ahead.
That's pretty good.
It is, isn't it? What did the shark say when he ate the clownfish?
I don't know. What did the shark say when he ate the clownfish?
This tastes a little funny. Um, why can't you hear a pterodactyl go to the bathroom?
I don't know why.
Because the P is silent.
Ah,
And
and we're off.
and we're off after some funny, some serious questions.
Well, and he started talking about AI, and he said he was relating it to healthcare. And uh, the first thing he talked about was virtual online visits
Yeah, that's
and
become quite a big thing.
how important AI is on that. So I'll pose that same idea to you: is how important do you find I don't know how much you get involved with it either. You know, how whether you in your business hear about a lot of AI, different stuff. But anyway,
They
I'll
are
pose it to you.
supposedly incorporating it into Net Health, which is a platform that most therapy practitioners use, at least in um, outpatient rehab settings. And it's supposedly going to listen to our conversation to create a note. Myself and a couple coworkers I've spoke to about this, we don't like this idea because as therapists, it's not like in a doctor's office. In fact, we have a doctor that uses that. I think a psychiatrist maybe, where everything's directly related to the session. As an occupational therapist, I'm interacting with the patient. We're getting to know them, especially working in a setting where I see people regularly. It's, outpatient at an independent living facility. So I've gotten to know these people. They've been on therapy caseload more than once. And so we joke around and we have fun and we find out things that are going on. So the thought of it recording everything I'm saying to create my note, because when I see a patient, like when I document a note, I've got to show the skills of a therapist. So therapist facilitated improved shoulder flexibility through reaching activities. Like that's how I document. That's not how I speak. So, you know, obviously there's going to be something programmed in there to turn it into that type of thing. I did work with a therapist a few years back and reading her notes, I'm like, wow, these notes are really detailed. And someone said she was using ChatGPT, which is AI, to generate her notes. So I'm not sure.
That,
Years ago, I worked where we did dictation for our documentation. So we would speak it into whatever it was. This is back in the 90s. And then it would come back to us and we'd have to review it before we approved it. And all I can remember is a physical therapist did some wound care at that time. And it came back balloon on the hip when it was a wound on the hip. I just remember that being sort of a funny thing. I can't remember whether I really liked it or not. You'd think that would take less time, but it was so long ago. I've always said I want brain to type, which is sort of an AI thing, right? But it's not a person, it's not a human.
yeah,
I'm a little biased. When it comes to AI, my children have informed me that the energy it takes to produce it is using a water supply,
yeah.
and has can have a it's going to have a huge impact on the environment. So when I hear that, I don't want anything to do with it. I don't like, um, I'd feel like it's not really necessary for one. And maybe there are situations where it could be beneficial, but they need to have a better, if it's utilizing resources and, and kind of cause issues with the earth and global warming, my first reaction is no, I don't want that. I don't, we already have enough things negatively impacting the environment. So I kind of have a wall to it, like this is not a good thing.
Well, and that's kind of the result I kind of came up with when he asked me too, is that, you know, well, I was talking about the fact of, you know, I remember as we've gone through different stages of life, there's been things, like I brought up the idea of microwaves. I remember when they come out, my mom was like, there's no way I'm going to
My
ever,
mom too.
and then we're microwaving everything,
And yet I've heard of negative impacts on
yeah.
microwaving food and how it affects food. So we don't always know the long-term effects of things. Um, we jump into things.
Well, because then we kind of moved into the AI with seniors, and we talked a little bit about AI with telemarketing and
Right now,
the scams
it's
we
a big
talked about.
problem, It is a huge problem because unlike in the early 1970s, if you got a phone call that you had won something,
It's
There's a
real.
99.9% chance now that it's not real. I'd almost say 100% chance, really, that
Yeah,
it's not real now versus then. Even though it was a silly prize, he really had won a prize.
yeah, yeah.
And there wasn't like a marketing thing behind it, I don't think. I don't, you were pretty young,
Yeah,
so
I
you
don't
don't
know,
remember, but so yeah, it's I don't know why what's coming to my mind is, the atomic bomb and and well, the other thing that was big back 20 plus years ago, 30 years ago, um, is
Uh-oh.
genetic therapy and
Oh, okay.
changing genes like cloning. They clone
Oh,
the
yeah.
sheep Dolly and just the effects that that can have, and messing with the human genome and on real people, and what kind of effect can that have on people. So there's a lot of things, I mean, things like this out there that we dive into quickly sometimes without planning and foresight. I mean, right now we don't know of they've I don't know. We don't hear in the news about cloning and that type of thing. We're more focused on all this AI stuff, but don't know really what's going on in the background in regards to that. It's sort of a hot topic right now. I mean, they talk about kids using it in school to write papers, and then, we have kids who are very against this and would never do that. And, it reminds me of plagiarism when I was in college that, you can't just copy things. Well, this is
Yeah,
somebody else putting thoughts together for you, a computer doing it. And then how are you thinking? I guess people used to say that about calculators, you need to learn to do the math, let the calculator
yeah,
do it for
yeah,
you. But you know, figuring out the sequence of numbers is very different than writing a paper or talking about a topic or, um, that's more of an efficiency thing. Yeah, we all need to learn math, and depending on your career, the level of math you need to learn doesn't mean you need to handwrite and fill out every mathematical problem every time. It's also not causing an issue. As far as I know, maybe put that to our listeners. Do calculators have the affected the environment? Now, obviously, that's like early computing stuff, right? So the effect of computers on the environment, just that technology in general. I guess there's the slippery slope. What could this lead to?
yeah. But that's a tough because it moved into, like how does it affect healthcare? We talked about um the industry, losing some of the we're now, I think I talked about the idea of that now we've got CNAs that are doing a lot of the work in like healthcare facilities, and you don't get as much like RNs or doctors that are in there, and how it can affect that, how it can affect that.
Um, yeah, I mean, just pushing more of the responsibilities on people who have the least knowledge. But what I'm thinking about while you were talking about that, sorry, is
That's all right.
I think about my documentation and writing notes. So my stuff gets sent to insurance. Insurance, things are billed through insurance. And right now, there's a lot of insurance companies who are denying people therapy services, especially someone who's been in the hospital and then needs short-term rehab, depending on the plan you pick. So be cautious if you don't. This is not happening with straight Medicare, but with those
The,
Humana and all those
the Advantage program.
the Advantage plans. They
Mm.
sometimes are due a hard, fast 10 days at the short-term rehab, and you broke your leg and you live alone and you have steps in your house. And now while you're healing, you can't put all your weight on your leg. And we have insurance companies who are cutting you off at 10 to 14 days, and then you have to appeal to stay longer. Well, if you lose that appeal, you're having to pay out of pocket for your stay in the hospital, and it's creating quite a problem. So what my mind goes to is, are they going to let AI make these decisions? And my mind is like, oh, good or bad. That could
Well,
maybe I would leave that better to computers than people, but because I wonder about the qualifications of the people making the decisions, and yet again, it speaks to allowing computers to make decisions. Like if you're going for surgery, would you want the computer to decide how to proceed versus an experienced, and there's pros and cons, right? Because there's always exceptions to things and things that are not programmed in there that,
Mhm.
um, yeah, it can lead to a lot of problems. So, and I don't know how you put the parameters in place, but
Yeah.
this is a long answer. Let's move on.
Well, I mean, see, we talked about the cost of care, and he said, the right now the cost of healthcare is going up, and because he asked me, where do you see healthcare going? I'm like, I was like, okay, let's see,
Well, I know where it needs to go, but it's not. Is more preventative care. There's been pushes for this over the years. Um, but it's, if we would pay for preventative services, it would save money in the long run. I tell
yeah,
the residents, I work in an independent living facility. People live there, and we work out of their building as an outpatient therapy company. And if someone, you know, gets bronchitis, and so they spend a week in their room in bed and eating meals, when you're over 70, you're getting weaker. I mean, all of us would, right? Not being up, moving, not walking to the dining room, not doing daily activities. And so then you can benefit from therapy. And we try to educate people. Don't wait till you're recovering and because you're weak, then you fall and you break your leg, which you can also have therapy, but let's do it a little more, preventatively and things like just exercise programs and plans. It's hard to, that's not this general maintenance, maintaining good health. There's all kinds of alternative therapies out there that have shown, even with research, to be effective and helpful and cost far less. Yet, that's not the mindset of the country. So I don't know. Let's move on.
um, well, then he brought up preventive medicine.
Oh boy, we're still in medical stuff.
Well, yeah,
And I
that's what
kind
a
of
lot of
I
this.
kind of jumped into that was preventive medicine. So yeah, I'm curious, what was his question he posed to you?
He said, do you feel like we over medicate or under medicate our
Oh, medicate as far as medications?
medications? Yeah,
Oh,
medication.
over medicate. And yet there's another problem because of the issue with opioids and the over prescribing of them. So a common medication, especially people with diabetes and things, is gabapentin. It's a nerve pain medication. It can be very helpful recovering from surgery, especially back surgery and things. But because of the restrictions put in place, I remember my mom dealing with this. She's caring for my dad. He needs 24-hour care. She needed to go get his gabapentin. They would only prescribe like 10 days or whatever of it. And they wouldn't prescribe anymore. And it's like, my dad is not overusing gabapentin. He can't even remember to take it, right? My mom's administering it to him. And yet, because of these laws, it made it difficult. There are still people who overuse opioids. And, I see a problem with when people leave the hospital and if they go to short-term rehab. So, whether, you've had a stroke or whatever, you see it a lot more in the older population, but someone who's been in a car accident with, significant injuries and can't go home yet, they're not quite healed enough. You don't get to just stay in the hospital. That doesn't happen. So, going to short-term rehab. In the hospital, they might prescribe you a pain medication every 4 hours. This is almost a standard because I see it like 100% of the time. When you leave the hospital, they change it to as needed. They don't tell these patients, these people who are 75, 80, 85, many with some form of dementia, that that's happening. And so then if they don't ask for the medication, they're not getting it. And if you're recovering from surgery, significant trauma, you can't be chasing your pain. You need to have something to help mitigate it so that you can do exercises so that you can do movement. Because if you're getting to the point of extreme pain, then you don't want to get up, you don't want to move, and that's just setting back your recovery. So, the communication is what I see as the problem. But, in their efforts to minimize over medicating people, they've kind of jumped to some things that I see as harmful. As therapists, we have to jump in and we have to take the time, which is okay, but it takes extra effort to check with the nursing staff. Have they had their pain medicine before therapy? This is a common thing I put down now on precautions. Because yeah, when you're hurting severely and then you try to get up and move around, you're either going to push through it and then be even twice as much pain or not want to because you're limited. So when you're healing from something, like it's different having pain medication in the short term, but the rules kind of apply to no matter what. So, I kind of said over medicating and then I went to explain how sometimes it's
Under medicating.
under. But, thinking back to, when your mom was, after she had been in the hospital. They went through her medications and they took her off like a whole bunch of stuff. And she actually did better because we don't realize the cognitive impact when we're on multiple medications, especially the older population. But is there any questions without healthcare in it?
Well, then he brought up. He said, why people don't manage their minds better? Why
Oh,
why do we not heal our minds better than what we do? So that leave that open
I
too.
have a lot to say about that.
Well,
That's the
good.
rest of the podcast. How much time do we have, Don? Because
Well, I had quite a bit to say about it
this
too,
is
but
a
no, go
huge
ahead.
problem.
Yeah.
Somehow we have, I guess, because the mystery of the brain and not understanding how it functions. And of course, then there's the whole, mind versus brain, those aspects, but just taking the brain, it is part of our body. And yet we have this whole separate field, this whole separate diagnostic and statistic manual for mental health, psychiatric illnesses versus body illnesses. And, we have kids with obsessive compulsive disorder. We've talked about that. And the serotonin is not going through the neuron synapses properly. That's why you go on SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, because they know that what's malfunctioning in the brain. And yet, you know, if you're diabetic and you're not processing, you know, glucose in your body properly and not having enough insulin to manage it, that's a medical diagnosis and medical treatment. But when the things are malfunctioning in your brain, all of a sudden it's this whole different classification. The brain is part of our body. I, as much as we don't understand as much what's going on in the brain, there was a time we didn't understand the body. I mean, we didn't understand germs. We didn't wash our hands before surgery. There's always new things that we're learning about the body in general. you know, I just think we need to take away that separation. There is so much stigma about mental illness and how our brains function. Our minds are, sane. Are we sane? Just think about the terminology that's been used over the years, and how mental illnesses and things have been treated. That's to me is just the big problem there. That it's been separated from the rest of our body. Um, Am I answering the question or going way off topic?
No, no.
Why don't
Well,
we attend to our minds? Well, there's a mystery there. People
yeah.
are afraid of what they don't understand, and yet people, you know, follow religion and have beliefs in things that, they just trusting, that they can't physically see or whatever. And yet people have a hard time with just processing that. I guess some of it's conditioning. There's definitely cultural elements to it. If you look at different cultures across the world and different time periods and things, as far as how people treat their mind, how people revere, thinking in that part of our body, it varies greatly in different cultures and traditions. You watch movies and TV shows just with kind of general American or even European opinions on mental illnesses and things like that. And just there's people that, don't believe in taking antidepressants, something as simple as that. There's far more complicated things that can happen in our mind than depression, but they don't believe in that. You need to just work harder. You need to just get over it.
Yeah.
We dealt with that when we were working with families with kids who had special needs. The traditional treatments and therapies and pharmaceuticals were not working for them, whether their mind worked different, they were neurodivergent, or they had something like obsessive compulsive disorder or other things that made it challenging for them to function in typical society. We encountered a lot of parents who the one parent was like, they just need to buck up, they just need to buckle down and work
Yeah,
harder.
yeah.
And, it doesn't work that way for kids nor adults, but especially children because their brain is not fully developed yet. Um, so there's so much we don't understand about the brain, our mind. I mean, now they're talking about the gut brain connection, right? It's always been
Yeah.
there. It's not new. We just didn't know
Yeah.
about it. Um, there's just so much there that's being unearthed. And sometimes we've gone down that path of alternative medicine and really did some research on it and worked with people who are very skilled and experienced in it that sometimes I forget how it's still not like mainstream at all and how um, really ignorant so many people are just, not having that full knowledge of things. I mean, you can think about that relating to anything, even beyond just, mental, physical health and that, but just that lack of knowledge and how people's opinions are when they don't have the information about things they don't understand. Um,
So my part, the one part I did bring up is that I think we are growing towards that, getting
yeah,
more and more of the, I think the medicine tends to slow it down a little bit. We could get a lot further if we didn't have the medicine, but at the same
didn't
point,
have the
medicine has a good,
medicine.
what's that?
What do you mean by if we didn't have
Well,
the medicine?
I think, we kind of like we talked about over medicate ourselves, even I think the,
And yet there's a stigma, you know, with medication and mental illness.
yeah.
So you're saying we over medicate it, and yet, do we over medicate diabetes? I mean,
Well, yeah, I mean, that's,
diabetes can is very connected to diet and um, and how we're treating our body. But there are times when it is needed, right? So that's my thought on why are we separating this?
yeah, yeah.
Why but there are so many tools, things like EFT,
Mhm.
mindfulness,
Yeah.
meditation. There's so many things that really have shown scientifically to have effects on how we function. So yeah, there's a lot more information about there. I mean, I think back when I grew up in the 70s and 80s, I used to sit in my bedroom and try to open my door with my mind. I don't know where I got these ideas. I was always fascinated by science fiction, and I wondered about the capacity that the mind has. So I was in, I think it was psychology class in high school. So this is high school psychology class, and I don't know if the teacher was talking about, that we can't see things, we can't, have that kind of telepathic power or whatever. And I remember him coming up to me and saying, guess what card is in the deck? And I guessed right. And then he goes, okay, but it won't happen again. And I guessed right again. So I kind of misproved what he was. I don't know if it was after that with me opening the door with my mind. I never succeeded. But just the powers that our brain, we know we only use a very small percentage of our brain. Like that is a known fact.
Yeah.
And so there is so much more power there, so much unknown to be unearthed. And yeah, and that's one way technology is helping to educate people about that. It
Yeah.
is becoming more understood. People are talking about mental health. I mean, there are Olympic athletes who talk about it that stepped back from their career because of mental health and just so that it is, I feel, improving and more awareness with it again. But I still feel staunchly adamant about stop separating it from the rest of our body.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, that's what the naturopathic doctors do. They have it as one whole person kind of thing. But as a kid, I was dreaming of being a warlock. So,
Trying to someone touch you to wiggle your
well,
nose,
yeah, that
like bewitched.
I was like, I don't, should I be a witch? I was like, I couldn't. I had to be a warlock. But I was doing the old.
Where did you learn to wiggle your nose? Did one of your brothers teach you?
Well, no, when I think I told you there was a lady at the parish our parish rectory. My mom worked up there, And so a lot of times before I went to school, I would go with her and I'd just sit there and read or do stuff. And there's one lady there, and what she would teach me wasn't it wasn't twitching the nose, it was how to smell like a rabbit, which is just opening the nose like that, you know.
Getting your
And
nose
I'd
to
sit
work.
there and practice that for hours in front of a mirror, and it took me a long time to but she'd just always kid me about that, you know. So anyway, um, well, the last thing he went to, and this is kind of weird. I didn't know what the heck. He talked about uh, the extending of life or the ending of life.
Okay.
And he said the thing he posed in it was, if I was 30 years old and they came to me and said, you've got cancer and you could do chemotherapy, he said I would go for it. But if I was maybe in my 70s or 80s and they came to me and said that, would I really go for that? You know, and so it's kind of about um, whether it's worthwhile to go through that and all that. So I'm going to kind of pose that to you. I didn't really know. It was like one I kind of went,
You weren't
okay, how do you,
expecting these unusual
yeah,
questions.
but it was still good. But anyway, I guess pose that a little bit to you as that idea of
I mean, I see that all the time. Um, I see that all the time. It's about quality of life, and if you've lived to be 70, 80, 90, depending on where your mindset is,
yeah, that yeah,
have you felt like you've lived a full and healthy life, versus if you're 20 or 30 or even 40, that capacity to want to continue your life. So you could say, well, is this ageism? Um, I don't think that the healthcare people should be making the decisions based on
yeah,
someone's
yeah,
age, but the individual person should have that right. Now, you could say, someone who's 20 and they don't want to do this, is that a good thing or not? There's a whole lot there, as I'm talking about it and thinking about it. The state of someone's mind, or do they have the capacity to make the decision for themselves? Are they, but yet it's still all about quality of life.
yeah,
People are living longer, which is why we're seeing more dementia.
yeah,
It's just a matter of that. People are living longer. People didn't used to live long enough to develop dementia. We prolong people's lives. We see this all the time with car accidents, traumatic injuries, even heart attacks, or my uncle had a dissecting aortic aneurysm. They didn't, he was in the hospital, kind of misdiagnosed it with his heart symptoms. And therefore, he went without oxygen to his brain, which causes oxygen deprivation, which causes brain damage. They repaired it, it kept him alive, but his brain damage was so significant that he
yeah.
didn't have quality of life. He was in his
Probably his 40s,
late 30s, 40,
somewhere around there.
40s, late 40s. Yeah, because it was about the time you had your heart attack, and he would be younger than you if he were living. Um, and he went to the hospital because something was going on with his chest. He thought he was, and they didn't figure it out. And so things like that, they prolong people's lives, and then yet what is their quality? Like, he could not communicate. He could make expressions with his eyes. I went to see him before, they enacted his living will. Um, he had to be exercised so his muscles didn't get stiff. He didn't have physical movement of his body. He was, the people, you talk about people in the vegetative state, and then you talk about locked in syndrome, someone who they can open their eyes and they can look around, they can hear, you can tell they're kind of alert or aware, but they can't
Can't really
function kind of.
process it or
Um, and so, there's these times when it's like we've kept people alive, but was it, beneficial to them? What kind of quality of life, are they now having? Um, and yet there's been so many great advances in medicine and things. Your father died at age 50, six
56.
of a massive heart attack. You had two massive heart attacks, and medicine has improved so much that at 67, you are still sitting here with me, having undergone a triple bypass and stents placed in your heart, having been resuscitated.
Yeah, by you.
I'm I'm not sure how effective my
Uh,
CPR was, but
Close enough.
um, we laugh about this, but
No, I know it wasn't funny then, but
people are
just
wondering why are
I'll
they
have a
laughing.
bump in my head.
It's been an experience.
Yeah.
But thinking about, I've totally lost what the initial question was, Don. You need to
Well,
rein me
we
back
were talking
in,
about extending life,
extending
going past,
life,
and
and just, looking at the quality of life. Yeah, so one thing I've seen a lot, people, especially you get anywhere near 80 plus, and they have family members who just, sometimes these people are like, I just don't know if I want to live. I'm dealing with a lot. Maybe they've got chronic pulmonary disease, they've got heart issues, they've got a lot going on that's deteriorating them. And their family's like, but you're going to get better. You're going to get better. And realistically, no, they're not going to be able to go home. They need 24-hour help and care. Um, and they want them to have therapy. I had a lady who was 100, and the family was like, if she's up for it, okay. If not, so we'd go in. Do you want to work today? If she didn't want to work, I'm certainly not going to make someone who's 100 years old do
it's a,
exercises. She lived in a nursing home. There was no changing that. She had to be assisted out of bed. I don't even know if she got out of bed very often. But, just this drive to live and this will to live and versus an acceptance. I've
yeah,
had people tell me, they're not suicidal. They've just realized that their health and where they're at in their life. And, there's like people who've gone through chemotherapy and things and like, okay, the cancer's back. I don't want to go through more treatment. I've been through enough already. That the
yeah,
negative effect it has, I'm just going to live out the rest of my days. And they have the right to make those choices.
yeah,
And like this one person I'm thinking of, their mother was, I think, in the mid to late 90s. And she's just like, you're going to get better. And it's like the family, we hold on to people,
hmm
but we don't live forever. There's people talk about cryogenics and, freezing themselves if they have some disease, waiting till it can be cured. And our bodies are not designed to live forever. Um, and yes, improved medicine can improve our life and even the quality. Um, but there are nuances there and things to really consider. And if, I want to speak to those people who have aging parents and um, if something happens, they have severe injury, they have a debilitating illness, they have multiple sclerosis, they have Parkinson's, they have, dementia, something that's progressive, or even just, chronic illnesses of the heart and lungs and things that take a toll on someone's body and their quality of life is, there will be a point sometimes with people that, they just want to sit and do less and that can be okay.
yeah,
If they're at peace with it, the people around them need to grapple with their own
yeah,
issues, and that's about the mindset and what do we believe. Especially
yeah.
people who believe in life after death. Is it okay to let go of our body? And there's a whole bigger question there, but a lot to be thought about with those questions. I like the other ones that were not related to AI. That one made me uncomfortable, just maybe because I know and I've worked in healthcare, so I have more opinions on these other things. Felt more comfortable. But there is so much to these questions.
Yeah, it did.
So many different areas, different venues we could go down.
Well, that's why I would like to put out this idea, you know, what to the audience,
Yes.
what do you think about AI and how let's focus it towards healthcare. How do you think it affects it? Good,
Hmm.
bad, or indifferent? And give us your thoughts. We'd love it in the comments because we could take whatever your thoughts are and we can
Talk about it
take
further.
up
We
on
can
it. And,
invite someone to be on the podcast to
yeah.
discuss this. And even the other two questions, Don, if you have them to do a quick recap of the other two questions that you posed to me.
Well, the extending life was what we talked about there, and then let me well, it was about medicine.
Yeah.
And how do we over medicate? Do we under medicate? And how does that affect our senior population or just families alone?
And then the mind, why
Oh
do we
yeah,
not
that
utilize our mind more and the effects of it? So you can kind of do a little summary of those questions in the description that'll
yeah,
be posted along with this podcast. And yes, we would love to hear from our listeners. Please leave us comments and your responses and things because we'd love to take questions and discussions further.
yeah.
So thank you for joining us today on our Focused Healthy Family podcast. If today's conversation helped you, please take time to like, subscribe, share this. Check out our past podcasts. We've covered so many different topics in so many different areas. Like I mentioned today, we talked about children with issues. We've had interviewed people about adoption and foster care, and we've had lots of interviews with very knowledgeable people on a lot of different topics. So please check that out. Like, share, subscribe. If stress, panic, or overwhelm are becoming part of your daily routine, and for who is that not happening, is what I
Yeah.
wonder. Please explore Don's EFT Discovery
Yeah,
Series. EFT tapping is often described as this is weird, but hey, it works. People can be skeptical going into it, but after a few sessions, they see how helpful it can be for them. So please check out information on our website about Don's tapping and EFT. He's a practitioner of it. It's not something he created. For wellness tips, caregiving resources, and more episodes, visit us at focusedhealthyfamily.com or focusedhealthyfamilypodcast.com. You can connect with us on social media. We're on Facebook at Focused Healthy Family. Our Instagram account is Focused Healthy Family 1. We're on YouTube. You can watch all these episodes. I guess the first maybe 6 months we were just audio only, but after that we've been video as well as audio. You can listen to us anywhere you listen to a podcast as well as listen and watch on YouTube. Don is available to speak to organizations, caregiver groups, healthcare teams, and community groups about practical ways to reduce stress and build resilience in caregiving communities. For information about booking Don to speak at your location, please reach out to schedule a presentation or a workshop. And again, I pose the idea, look at the questions and the things we talked about today to please respond to those in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And remember, how you speak to your children and your loved ones today shapes their future and yours.